Good morning and welcome to the Anfield Leadership Series interview program. Today we are very excited to be speaking with a good close friend of mine, Frank Monaco. Frank, thanks for doing this, and I really appreciate you giving us the time today.
Absolutely, Barry. Thanks for the time.
Would you mind giving the audience a quick overview of your current role and company, a little bit of your background before we dive in?
Sure. Currently, I am President and Chief Operating Officer for Tua Financial. Tua Financial is an embedded lending system and platform that focuses on essential service providers, predominantly in the United States, although we're starting to make inroads here in Canada. And what we do is we help people obtain those essential services by providing lending capital through an embedded technology platform that exists. So very simply put, imagine going to the dentist and having to get a procedure done, and you don't have the insurance coverage, nor do you have the funds in order to offset it. Our platform is something that you can utilize in order to obtain the funds and achieve a fixed payment schedule so that you can go ahead and have the procedure that you want to have done.
Cool.
Before Tua, I spent 25 years in the payments landscape. And during that time, I worked with a couple of founders and some real pioneers within the space for a company called Stored Value Solutions, as well as another company called Income. And in that 25 years, I helped build one of the largest processing platforms across the globe, focused in on prepaid products, gift cards, as most of you would know. So I am the gift card guy. In that time frame, also created a network interconnecting over 400,000 merchants across more than 37 countries. So that's me.
Cool. Well, thank you, Frank. Let's jump into it, shall we?
Sure.
All right. I'd like to begin with having you describe to the audience just more of a generic starting point. What does the word leadership mean to you?
Oh, wow. I think, from my perspective, leadership is the ability to translate a vision into reality. And you do that by inspiring others to do more, to achieve more than maybe they've even ever imagined. So it's really about being able to communicate and inspire others.
Excellent. Thank you. What are some of the important values that you would demonstrate as a leader?
Well, I think one of the most important ones is passion, trust. It's kind of there's a lot. Fairness, selflessness, decisiveness, empathy, inclusivity. I think there are a number of elements that are important. I think some of them are even unique to individuals, because at the end of the day, leadership is really about people.
Right. So great, some really great descriptors. If you had to pick one that just sort of resonates with you, what would you say is the most important value that you think yourself offers as a leader?
Empathy is probably one of the biggest ones. And for me, the way I define that is the ability to understand both the situation, the market space, and the people that are in it. Okay. And demonstrating that, having the ability to actually demonstrate that understanding.
Great answer. As I was thinking about all of the great adjectives you gave and which one sort of resonates the most with me, it happened to be the same one. So I'm really glad you chose that.
Maybe that's why we're such good friends.
So, turning to sort of leaders of the future, for others aspiring to be great leaders, whether they're in a leadership responsibility or they have that aspiration, what sort of few key characteristics do you feel are essential to becoming an effective leader?
Well, I think probably the most important thing is listening. And, we talk a lot about listening skills and, but what I mean by that is really, really understanding both what's happening around you, the opinions, creating an environment, a culture that allows people to communicate what their thoughts, ideas are, And I think, we talk about that cultural aspect and that environmental aspect within your business or within your teams, I think is equally as important, if not in many cases, even more important than some of the metrics that you might, be working towards.
Right.
Um, in my view, the greatest leaders know how to build teams. Um, those teams and those values that are shared amongst them build the culture in the business.
Sure.
And those individuals support that culture and are drawn in by it. And at the end of the day, we forget that companies don't do business with companies. It's actually the people that do business with each other.
Well said. Well said. So, switching gears to training, tell us about any formal leadership training you've been fortunate enough to attend during your career, and if more than one, what would you say was the most beneficial for you?
Well, it's interesting. I had working within larger companies, as well as with some startups. I've had some exposure to a number of internal training programs. Um, I think though, I wouldn't. I'm not sure if I would say that's formal, although it is internal training programs. But I think for me, the best education has come through mentorship. Um, Looking at working with, seeking out those leadership qualities that were most important to me,
Right.
um, and working with others to develop my own style, my own approach. And I think the best experience you can garner is through trying things and really living through things, um, and candidly failing as you do it, and
Sure.
trying to pick up as much as you can through that failure.
Any key takeaways from that mentorship approach that really resonate with you now you can share for others?
Yeah, I think some of the values that I talked about earlier, in terms of having empathy, one of my um, greatest mentors early on in my career, I didn't really see him as my boss. I almost saw him as my dad in some cases. And that's kind of sounds strange, but it was somebody that I could bounce ideas off of, that wouldn't judge me,
Right.
that was open to different thoughts, recognizing that I was very young and, was full of ideas. And they always gave me a space to talk. And I think that level of comfort is something I took away, and that environment that was created, and that wasn't just for me. He was like that with, with the entire company, and he co-founded the company as well. So for me, that was an early on example that success can come out of people that are not just hardlined or always numbers, but also people that create these safe spaces for people to feel comfortable to share a little bit of themselves, and the things that they think might work best.
Right. No, good point. So I know you haven't been with Tua all that long, but I'm curious about the culture you've observed, the culture you quote unquote inherited, if you will. How would you categorize that culture when you came on board a little while ago?
I think the culture is really strong. I'm fortunate that I walked in and, partnered with a founder, a gentleman by the name of Bob Christensen, who, really has the same values, as I do in terms of building teams and building strong cultures. So, it's one that is built on accountability. Everybody works together. There are no silos. And that can happen from time to time with an organization where you're the technical people, or you're the marketing people, or you're the salespeople, and sometimes they don't all speak the same language.
Right.
Um, so creating environments where everyone sits at the table and everybody discusses, the opportunity, the challenge per se, and everyone walks away with, this is how we're going to do this together, is really at the core. And I think if you look at the values of the company, generally speaking, our mission is really to help others,
Right.
and that's why the company was formed, and you see that permeating through the team.
Okay. Any intentional actions that you could describe or that you observed and or put in place yourself to ensure it remains that way?
Yeah, we get together every Tuesday morning, um, and we spend about an hour, and we just go over various elements that each of us are working on.
Sure.
In that time frame, we discuss challenges that may be occurring, and those challenges might be an IT challenge, and there is always a conversation about uh, how can we help. And when I say we, finance might be asking, is there something that we can do to help you address that? And we do that on a weekly basis. So creating that space once a week just to kind of go through priority items, challenges, and issues, and really having that on the calendar,
Yep.
um, has been something that we've started to do. The other thing is that Fridays we typically like to go maybe have a drink together and just kind of break bread, and we do that as well on a regular basis. So those are the two key things that I think create that atmosphere of inclusiveness and really that team family, so to speak, feel.
I was gonna say it's nice to have, you mentioned with it being on the calendar. People know it's scheduled, people know it's consistent, people know it's an open space, and that really gives a sense of warmth or value to people knowing having gone through that meeting exactly how they're able to speak about anything that's on their mind. And it's almost like a team
Yeah,
building function, if you will, but with purpose.
yeah. Well, it's prioritized, right? So it's funny. We live in a world of devices and times, and everyone's busy and everybody's got things going on. So really making that a priority and putting it into your activity weekly.
Sure.
um it's there. And then also, as you encounter issues, that you have a space that you can actually bring those up every single week. It's not necessarily always a fire drill.
Right.
And that helps kind of create an environment where you start to think, well, is this something that I can bring to the group? And there's an environment, or there's an event that happens every week for us to be able to bring it to the group, as opposed to creating those ad hoc, can I get a hold of you, and can we all kind of jump together type of scenario. So
Hmm.
not that that doesn't happen. That's still how it's part of life and business. Things pop from time to time.
All right, switching to just the communication side, how would you define your communication style with others, and what do you feel are the benefits of that approach?
Well, I think I'm pretty direct. Uh, you you know me pretty well, so I think you can attest to that. Um, look, what you see is what you get, and I think that style of not necessarily um, trying to find the right position or word, but just talking about what it is, being factual. I think people appreciate that. They know where they stand. They know what the issue is. They don't have to walk away and try to think about what just happened or what was that conversation about. I'm pretty transparent from that perspective, and so I think that um, that's generally been a trait that has been played back to me as being something that most people have I don't know if the word enjoyed is the right word, but that they've appreciated
Right.
at the
So
I think
it's funny as you're describing and chuckling about the word being direct, which basically means to me, if it's on your mind, you're not sugarcoating it. You're just telling it as it is. But as you're telling the story, the word authentic actually came to my mind.
well, yeah, I've heard that a couple of times too, and I appreciate that. I think clarity is important, and I think a lot of times leaders believe they need to create a wall or a separation between who they are and what they do.
Right.
And I know lots of people that do that, and that works for them. That's just not me.
Right.
Um, this is who I am, and I think people have appreciated that, because the person they may run into, let's say, at the restaurant with their family, is the same person that they see, at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, grabbing a coffee.
Right. So, what would you say is your greatest strength? Let's call it maybe your superpower, if you will.
X-ray vision. No, I think look, I've always had a really good sense of what's happening around me and how that's impacting people and markets and otherwise. I think that's probably one of my greatest strengths from that standpoint. I also think, that being able to have to be tough, but also be warm, you know, combining those things. And I'm not ashamed to say that's a carbon copy of my mother, God rest her soul. That's how she was, very tough, a brilliant woman, really strong. And so, through my life and career, I've had great people that I've been able to interact with personally, professionally, and I've always tried to garner from those individuals some of those strengths, and to a certain extent emulate them and make them my own.
Excellent. So, what advice would you offer to those looking to become more effective leaders in their career? What impact on themselves, the teams they lead, and the results they earn do you believe leadership can have to affect that?
Well, I think first of all, I think it's important to recognize that leadership isn't necessarily the person at the top, right?
Right.
I mean, and we sometimes we think about it in that way: the CEO, the COO, the president, the vice president, director, whatever the title is that you have. But leadership can actually come from anywhere within an organization. And so I would say that some of the most important factors is to know who you are, spend time and think about exactly what it is that moves you, drives you. Listen, it could be superficial. It doesn't matter. It's yours.
Mhm.
So think about those things that make you who you are, the things that help to push you forward. Set goals for yourself. That's really important. If you're, when I was starting out in my career, I used to have I wrote down all the positions I wanted to hold within a company. And I put dates to it.
Mhm.
And so I would,
Sounds, sorry to interrupt. Sounds familiar.
yeah. And I mean, I think, those were goals. And then what I did was I didn't focus so much on that end one. What I did was focus on the next one. And it's basically like a ladder or steps, if you want to call it that. And so I would just pay attention to that first step. And I would think about, if I want to manage, and manage is the wrong term, but if I want to become a manager,
Yep. Lead
um,
others. Yep.
and really be responsible for other people, then there are things that I need to understand that come with that. How to be an effective listener. What types of questions to ask that don't make people feel like you are interrogating them. That's a skill set. And so I'd break it down into small things. Read a lot of different books on the subject. Everything from Franklin Covey's How to Win Friends, Influence People, to Never Eat Alone. I mean, there's lots of stuff out there that you can gravitate to, but absorb as much information as you can. And I also searched out mentors, those folks that I saw within, my sphere that, had the skills or had something that was interesting to me that would help me lead to that next level.
The secret sauce, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is, no one has all the sauce. It's
Right.
it's combinations of things, and you try to put them together so they suit you.
No, that's awesome. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today. Um, I believe we're able to learn a lot about your leadership style and how others may benefit from this great advice you've offered and the journey you've undertaken. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. I think others will enjoy it as well.
Well, I appreciate the time, Barry. It's always great talking to you, and I wish you all the best, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
All right. For our audience, these interviews are available on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search Anfield Business Consultants. Join us next time for another insightful interview on the challenging subject of effective leadership. Thanks for watching.